Beer to Go was kind of founded on the idea that there's a hole in the non-traditional sports market. So if you look at traditional sports, you've got a Nike and an Under Armour and Adidas and a Reebok that kind of play right down the middle of those sports. And they'll get into certain specific sports, but they also have a large offering that is good for whatever you're doing. In the non-traditional sports world, there are all the brands in that world seem to be very niched, even the large ones. So your mountain brands are mountain brands, and your water brands are water brands. Your climbing are climbing, your biking are biking, and so on and so forth. There's not really a brand that took really a Nike or an Under Armour approach and just kind of shot right down the middle. So what we're trying to do is, we always say we want to be the Nike for non-traditional sports. So as you look at everything, again, from climbing to surfing to mountain biking to even the odd things that you see out there that are starting to grow, like slacklining and rappelling contests and those kind of things. We'd like to sit in the middle of all of that and create apparel that fits really anything that you're doing outside. You know, I've been in e-commerce for the last 8 years prior to this business, and there's a couple things that made us open a store. One is it's really hard to be e-commerce only. Just in terms of legitimacy and everything else, there's still people that want to see that you actually do exist in person somewhere, and you're not just doing things out of a basement. And so our store was partly to take care of that, but also, you know, we have a store that's 20 yards from 30,000 college students. So we look at the store as less of a retail outlet and more of a focus group. And so as we're bringing in new apparel, as we're trying new things, then we have a constant supply of, you know, 18 to 23, 24-year-old guys and girls who come in the store, try things on, tell us what they like, tell us what they don't like. So I see our store as an interactive part of the brand, which I think is hugely important. And there are just some things you can't interact with online, and we try to take care of the rest of that through the store. The other thing with e-commerce, and having a store as well, is I think it's really difficult to launch a brand without a content or experience angle these days. I believe there's 3 legs of a stool, and product is only one of those 3 legs, and people get tired of product. But if you have content, or if you have experience, or in our case, if you're able to do both, then you've got all 3 legs of the stool. So the store is a big part of the experience of the brand, and not everyone can have that. But even if they see the store online, it's still a different experience than just seeing a grid with products on it. Sourcing product's hard, especially in the apparel world. There's only certain things you can do until you run up against your limits in terms of what your ability might be. And for someone like me who's been deep in marketing or in e-commerce, that's a world that I'm still learning. So we hired a team out of New York that has 2 or 3 apparel experts, and there's a person on that team who has been sourcing for years, and I think she's literally been in every apparel factory in the world, or at least it seems that way. So she has those types of connections, and instead of starting as a startup, trying to do those things in-house is really hard. So our philosophy is outsource some of these things on the upfront, and then if we get to critical mass, then we pull those roles in-house. So the apparel design team, the sourcing team, that's all outsourced. Now there's heavy input from us from a design perspective, but at the end of the day, we have people that know what they're doing, because we would probably design the ugliest stuff on earth if it was left up to us. The website is interesting. The technology on that front and the user interface and people's expectations continues to move really fast. So just think when you think you have it down, things have passed you by. So we've tried to move out in front in terms of the current thinking in the website. So there's a couple of things on that. One is, I mentioned earlier, the content and the importance of content in building a brand. So our website really feels more like a blog than it does an e-commerce site. And that comes from a belief that you can't pound people with product 24 hours a day. They're just going to get tired of it. But if you have content on your site that they can interact with and give them a reason to come back once a day or once a week, that's not necessarily product related, then you can build a relationship with those customers, and when it is time to buy, then they'll hopefully buy from you. So our website is very forward thinking. There's another startup company locally that has actually built our site for us. So we migrated off of Shopify just recently onto a new site called Engine. And again, the way it is designed to flow seamlessly across content to product and even to social. There's a deep linking integration with social media on it that you don't see very many places. So for instance, if we put an Instagram story on our site or a little article, if you click that, it actually on your phone, it opens it in the Instagram app. So it's a deep linking deal versus, having you off of Instagram. What that means is if you open it on your phone, you're on the Instagram app, you can interact with it, you can like it, you can put, you can comment on it. Most sites, they're just going to leave you on their site, or they're going to take you, in a way that you can't interact with the article itself. So, so from a digital marketing standpoint, that's a very difficult world. A lot of people think, number one, if you build it, they will come, and there's just no truth to that whatsoever. So you can have the greatest website in the world, and if you don't understand how to drive traffic, then it'll just sit there. I had a friend who always compared it to building the Taj Mahal in the middle of western Kansas. There's not many people that are going to come visit it. And so you have to understand how to drive traffic. You have to understand the limitations of social media, and particularly if you start buying ads on social media, a lot of people lose their shirts very quickly. Because you can drive a lot of traffic that way, but a lot of times it's not traffic that's going to buy, because these people aren't shopping when they're on Facebook, and when they're on Instagram or Snapchat, they're not in shopping mode. So you need to find another way to interact with them. And again, that's why we use content a lot. So if we're driving traffic off of social, we can serve up content and then blend product in a much less contrived way.
So you have to put a lot of effort into content development.
Absolutely. And in fact, our team, we have 6 or 7 people right now, and everyone wears more than one hat. So our creative director actually came from an online magazine called Uncrate.com, which is like a GQ, a men's review magazine. He was their editor. And so I brought him in. He does a lot of our design work, but he's really a content guy. And then our store manager is a really good photographer. So she's providing a lot of visual content. One of our interns is a really good photographer. We have a 17-year-old videographer. So our team, if you looked at it, might look more like we're a content shop versus an apparel brand or an e-commerce shop, and that's very intentional. I think content is harder than product, and so we probably focus more on content, and we do the right things on the product side, but I think the content side's a lot more difficult. You've really got to look at your audience and who they are and how they interact with you. And we test a lot of things. We test some longer form content, so you might see a 14 or 15 minute video, like a long form type of video where it might have a four-day trip that we took, and it would be a recap of that, a little bit behind the scenes. That's on the long side, all the way down to you might have a 10-second quick hitting video. It might be one photo with one caption that looks like a tweet. So what we're doing is we're combining, one part Twitter, one part Instagram, one part Facebook, one part magazine, and pushing those together. And then you see what your audience tends to interact with more, and then increase or decrease your volume of each of those things based on the interaction with people and what kind of traffic you get and page views and those kind of things. And at the end of the day, you can find out which of those forms and which of those platforms tend to drive more traffic that's either just absorbing content or people that tend to be buyers as well.